Welcome. Whoever you are, whoever you love, welcome to our community this morning. I'm Marcia Epstein, your worship arts facilitator for today. We recognize our responsibility to be stewards of this land, and we do so in cooperation with the people of the Blackfoot Confederacy through Treaty 7. Mokinsis, the Blackfoot word for what is now the city of Calgary, is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We acknowledge that Treaty 7 was entered into as collaboration, making us all treaty people.
Sorry. Good morning, everyone. We light our chalice, symbol of our liberal religious heritage, with the words of Monica Jacob Tennyson. What is it that calls you here, that calls you onward, that calls you inward, that leads you homeward? What is it that gives you the power to make that change, to ask that question, to take that journey? What is it that says you have done well, that asks you to learn more, that brings you to stillness, that holds you up in hard times? It is relationship, the beating heart of our faith. It begins when we share this hour, our truths, this air, our hearts. Come, let us worship together. Good morning. I'm Reverend Shelley Thompson. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm delighted to be here with all of you today, both in person and online. Today we are having an online 8th Principle Forum at 2 o'clock. Our first printing in the e-news was incorrect. We corrected it on Friday. So it's 2 p.m. today to give everyone here a chance to go home and have lunch and settle back in before we get onto that forum and have that conversation. And we will follow the same schedule, 2 p.m. next Sunday, for continuing that important conversation. This is a chance to really dive into this 8th principle work as a community and decide how we are going to answer this call to transform ourselves and our institution. It's an exciting time, so I hope you'll join us. And there's even more 8th principle conversation happening at the national level. The Canadian Unitarian Council is holding its 3rd of 4 forums about the 8th principle tonight. And tonight's topic is transmuting resistance, embracing perspective and accountability. And then here at home at Calgary Unitarians this week, in addition to all the wonderful Zoom activities that we have going on Tuesday morning at 10 a.m., there's another group going out walking at the Cougar Ridge Escarpment. That information's in your e-news and on our website. And I'm really excited because CU Friday event for October the 22nd at 7 is silent movie night with Jane Perry, the fabulous. So thank you, Jane, for creating all of the wonderful connection opportunities that you do and enriching us so much. Now we get to hear from the magnificent Jane Perry.
Good morning, friends. It's good to be together with you again, both in this virtual space and live and in person here in Panabaker Hall this morning. So as we talk about the 8th principle, as we talk about working together to find new ways to be together, to be inclusive, to be anti-racist, and discover what that means, both for us within ourselves and as a community here at the church and reaching out to the wider world, we're talking about building a new way. So let us sing together hymn number 1017, Building a New Way.
Hey, good morning, everyone. It is lovely to be here. And this morning, I have a few announcements. We have multi-faith calendars for sale once again. I'm picking them up today, and a few of you have already reserved yours. And I only have a limited number on hand. So if you're interested, you can reserve yours by emailing me at dre@calgaryunitarians.ca, and I'll have the links out in the e-news this week on how we can do payment and what the pickup dates are. But you don't want to miss out on those. They make a really great gift for the holiday time coming up. And speaking of holiday time, one of my favorite holidays is Halloween, and that's coming up. And I'm looking for any donations of Halloween stuff that you're looking to get rid of for the coming Halloween season, because I'm going to be working on an outdoor event for the children and youth for Halloween. Hopefully, weather permitting, cross your fingers for me that we have a warm Halloween this year. But it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you have any donations, again, give me an email, dre@calgaryunitarians.ca, and I will pick those up, or you can drop them off. We'll make arrangements, but it's going to be very spooky. So I'm looking forward to that. And lastly, some of you may know we have an all ages photo challenge going on every month as part of See You Friday. The next one is in November, and the theme is called Holding History. So if you'd like to be a part of that, watch the e-news and then come on out. But everyone's welcome, whether you're 2 years old or 92, everybody's welcome. That's on Zoom for November. And this week, as you know, we're talking about the proposed 8th principle. And what some of you may not know is we have a children's version of all the principles. And so one example of a children's version of the proposed 8th principle is we work together for diversity and act against racism and oppression. And I'm going to share with you our list of kid principles here. Just one moment. There we go. So this is the, with the 8th principle, proposed 8th principle included, everyone is important. That's our first one. We are free to learn together. We search for what is true and fair. All people have a vote. We work for a peaceful world. We must care for our planet, the home we share with all living things. And the new one, we work together for diversity and act against racism and oppression. So this is just what it would look like if the CUC adopts the 8th principle to our list. And this week's newsletter for the children and youth, we have printables of our printables for the 7 principles and for the proposed 8 principles, if you want to have those at home, because I know for myself sometimes some people ask me, what are all of the 7 principles? And I have to think for a bit. And so if you print them out, have them at home, they're easy to reference, and you can kind of think, okay, well, how am I going to add that principle, or which one am I going to focus on this week as part of my at-home UU inspiration? And as part of our celebration of the 8th principle, learning about it today, I have a story for all of you. It's written by Bell Hooks, who is, Bell Hooks is the pen name of Gloria Watkins, and she's an American scholar and activist whose work examines the connection between race, gender, and class. And what I find really cool is that she wanted her pen name to be spelled all in lowercase to shift attention from her identity to her ideas. And now this is the book she's written called Skin Again by Bell Hooks. The skin I'm in is just a covering. It cannot tell my story. The skin I'm in is just a covering. If you want to know who I am, you have got to come inside and open your heart way wide. The skin I'm in looks good to me. I will let you know one small way to trace my identity. But then again, the skin I'm in will always be just a covering. If it cannot tell my story, if you want to know who I am, you have got to come inside. Be with me inside the me of me, all made up of stories present, past, and future. Some true to life and others all fun and fantasy, all the way I imagine me. You can find all about me, coming close and letting go of who you might think I am. Before you come inside and let me be real, and you become real to me. All real then in that place where skin again is one small way to see me, but not real enough to be all. The me of me or the you of you, for we are all inside, made up of real history, real dreams, and the stuff of all we hope for when we can be all real, together on the inside. There we go. I love that story. And now to end, another quote by Bell Hooks is, once you do away with the idea of people as fixed, static entities, then you see that people can change and there is hope. And for myself, I have hope that we can work together for diversity and against racism and oppression, and of all we hope for when we can all be real together on the inside.
There we go. I love that story. What does it mean to be accountable for our collective liberation? Those are some big you words, being accountable for our collective liberation. Throughout the Unitarian Universalist faith, we're calling ourselves to look deep within and imagine an expanded version that redefines Unitarian Universalism for the 21st century. We're calling ourselves to widen our circle of concern to more fully embrace everybody, all of humanity, across all of our differences. We're calling ourselves to be accountable for building authentic, diverse, beloved community. I give you a definition of beloved community from our siblings at the Black Lives of UU Organizing Collective, also known as BLUE. Beloved community happens when people of diverse racial, ethnic, education, class, gender, sexual orientation, backgrounds, and identities come together in an interdependent relationship of love, mutual respect, and care, and seek to realize justice within the community and the broader world. Beloved community is built through an interdependent relationship of love, mutual respect, and care. And building beloved community is what creates collective liberation. It is a yes and, it is a win-win scenario that serves the common good. It's what I believe in our heart of hearts, Unitarian Universalism really wants to be all about. And so far, our efforts as Unitarian Universalists in this amazing endeavor, we've made a lot of progress, and we've also discovered that we've been really self-limiting. We don't see very much diverse, beloved community in our congregations. The eighth principle identifies the barriers to beloved community as racism and other oppressions that exist in our dominant culture, and therefore in all of us, in the ways that we treat people who are different from us, all of the habits that we have that can create harm. And it calls us to make a commitment to tear down the barriers. We have to accept that we cannot build beloved community until we stop perpetuating and start dismantling white supremacy culture. That's the truth. So here's the 8th principle, Canadian version. We, the member congregations of the Canadian Unitarian Council, covenant to affirm and promote individual and communal action that accountably dismantles racism and other repressions in ourselves and in our institutions, right here. And it's so important that this is a covenant. We're a covenantal people. That's what unites us. We're asking ourselves to promise to stop sabotaging our efforts and to start healing our relationships within and among Unitarian Universalism, and therefore then beyond into our activism and our actions and our relationships in our communities. The 8th principle is being accountable for building and maintaining healthy relationships rooted in our values: love, inclusion, justice, compassion, acceptance, equity, kindness, forgiveness, just to name a few. The 8th principle is all about creating responsible relationships that build beloved community, which generates collective liberation. We need to be accountable together for the process of transforming ourselves, changing the way we communicate, changing our congregational covenants, our policies, our ways of doing things. Because, my dear ones, if we don't, who are we? And why are we here? We know that the way will be very hard. This is extremely difficult work, which is why it's been evaded and avoided and denied for so long by so many. Change is always really hard. And transformation like this is extra hard. And the journey really is going to outlive all of us. It's going to take more than our lifetimes. So we need to get started. As the saying goes, the impossible is going to take a little while. Dismantling white supremacy culture is going to take a little while. And the work is so uncomfortable for many of us. It reveals heartbreaking truths about harmful habits, thoughts, and beliefs, and implicit biases that are conditioned into us, the water we swim in. So we really resist difficult change like this. It's easier not to. And some of us who identify as white have the option to choose not to. It's not particularly fair, and it really doesn't contribute to the solution. Avoiding it and letting someone else do it, that doesn't work. So the lasting change we want to create in ourselves and our world can only happen when we hold each other accountable to do the work together all the time, in every aspect of congregational life, and in all of our relationships, from board meetings to coffee hour, to social justice activism, to everything we do. So being accountable together. Oh, this is good news though, isn't it? We know that we're better together. We know how to love and support one another when things are tough. We know how to celebrate our success and encourage one another to have hope. Being accountable together is what covenants are for. It's a really good thing that we're a covenant-centered faith. But this is also precisely where the conversation gets interesting. Because there's a lot of white UUs who don't have many or any at all relationships with BIPOC siblings, or relationships across significant differences from people from cultures and life experiences different from their own. And so they don't have the experience of witnessing the harm, the damage, the chronic microaggressions and disappointments and insults and injuries caused by racism and other oppressions. And seeing that happen to people we love and care about, wow, makes an impact. And a lot of people don't have that experience. That absence of relationship is exactly what we're talking about. That's the problem we're trying to deal with. Because it causes people to focus on words and whether or not a principle is really a principle and what the dictionary says and all sorts of other nonsense that has nothing to do with being in right relationship with one another. They start arguing and debating and obfuscating the whole purpose because, oh, it's so much easier to argue about those words than to confront the truth and the painful reality that we need to change if we want to live our values. The principle was first brought to us by Paula Cole-Jones. She's an extraordinary activist and educator, and she's been doing race work with UUs for decades. And it occurred to her that there's an awful lot of people who think of themselves as good UUs, who follow the 7 principles, who never ever give a thought to racism and oppression. It just doesn't exist in their minds. So there's no accountability for the larger human reality and lived experiences of our BIPOC UUs. They're getting ignored completely, no matter how loudly they tell us that they're being harmed. So much harm has been done. There are stories after stories, and it continues happening. And even though a lot of promises have been made and we say we're going to try, a lot of promises have been broken. And so our BIPOC siblings continue to suffer and put up with a whole lot of insult and injury in order to participate in Unitarian Universalism. They're telling us very loud, very clear, they're done waiting. They're done being disappointed by broken promises. It's not okay to make them leave half themselves at the door. It's not okay to continue to hurt them at coffee hour and at our meetings and in worship. It's not okay to pretend that we're about justice and love when we don't practice it with the people right in front of us. So the 8th principle is an example of the written word is not something to be debated or adapted or rejected. It's not about the words. Because to do that is to spit in the faces of our BIPOC siblings. These are people I love. These are my friends. These are partners, children, grandchildren, neighbors, coworkers. These are our beloveds. So many people I love and care about. It's time for white people who have power, who have position and privilege to do what we are told for once. No backtalk, no evasion, no excuses. We're being given a golden opportunity, a chance to learn new skills, to understand in profound ways what our principles really mean when the rubber hits the road, to get clear with ourselves about who we say we are and how we show up in the world, and who we want to be and what we want to become together. What a beautiful opportunity. So few people ever receive that invitation or are given the grace and the forgiveness to try, to start where we are and to try to grow, to get better at it. What a gift. A few weeks ago, I shared with you a great example of some of the things that we can learn to do differently. This is the responsibility covenant that was created for the CUC and for this 8th principle work specifically, because so often the conversations have been hijacked. This was created by Erin Hovarth and Amber Bellemare, who describe it as a tool to support cultural transformation in Unitarian Universalist groups that aspire to be more diverse and intentionally inclusive. That's us, right? The responsibility covenant gives us 6 spiritual practices to follow in our relationships and our communications with one another, especially across differences, especially when we're uncomfortable, especially when it's hard to hear the truth of other people. And these are spiritual practices that the wider world does not know about in general. The world is usually doing the exact opposite. So, again, the opportunity to practice, to learn, to grow together, it's a sacred opportunity. We want deep, caring, real relationships. We want to see one another for who we really are, all of us, together on the inside. Quaker educator Parker Palmer says that the soul is shy, like a wild animal. And if we go crashing through the woods, we're never going to meet it. We're not going to have those deep, authentic relationships of mutual care and understanding that we want. Anyone who's ever creeped through the woods trying to see the wildlife knows this, right? We've got to sit still and listen and meet them on their terms. And then they might spend some time with us, and we might get to experience that holiness. So the same is true with human beings. We are all have vulnerable parts inside that are shy. We're afraid of getting hurt. We're afraid of showing up for one another and really being true. And one of the beautiful things about Unitarian Universalism is part of the purpose is to say, hey, we want a place and we want a community where we can do that. We know how important that is to be seen and heard and valued for who we really are. So this is the place. We're the people. This is the time to get even better and better at this because we know how important it is. So that responsibility covenant contains some of the necessary praxis that goes with our principles. The principles aren't just wishes. They're spiritual practices. We have to actually live them in the way we treat people. They're strongly held convictions about what we know to be true about people and the way we would like all of us to treat each other out there in the wider world and right here at home. And so much of the time, there's large segments of the population and institutions and structures that are doing the exact opposite of our principles. There are forces working against us. And sometimes we're the barrier ourselves. It's important to know that, right? So that we can work on it together. Again, such a gift. So in case you don't remember, clear back to September, those 6 practices, which are all helpful for deeply connecting. Practice 1 is welcome. Welcome people to share what's on their hearts in a way that is authentic to them and receive their offering with gratitude. This is the platinum rule. Do unto others as they want done unto them. Welcome. Engage. Engage my body, mind, and spirit and emotions in learning and embrace different perspectives. So good to start with the beginner's mind of I don't know. Our society does the opposite. It says you're supposed to have all the answers and you should be ashamed if you don't know. Pfft, crazy talk. That's nonsense. I don't know is the beginning of wisdom. Inquire. This is a hard one. Inquire about my own discomfort that arises when my security, worldview, privilege, tradition, protocol, and values are challenged. We've all encountered this, smack in the face, every time we watch the news, when we listen to the politicians, when we encounter people who hold the opposite views that we do. Every time Donald Trump tweeted something, ooh, this would come up in me. Oh. It's easy to get angry and lash out and make it about the other person, because that's another good way to avoid feeling our own pain and vulnerability. The harder thing is to inquire. Wow, why does that get me so badly? I'm feeling vulnerable, I'm scared, I'm afraid that someone else is going to have power over me, dominate me, oppress me in some way. I don't want that to happen to me. Inquire about that discomfort, sit with it, be with it. Ask questions with the intent to deeply understand the person's views. Resist the urge to make it about me and what I think I know. This is counterintuitive. This is not the way we normally have conversations. Normally, you're telling me something and I'm already thinking about the thing that I know that I'm going to tell you, so that you know that I understand stuff better than you, or that I have great things to contribute. And that by that point, I'm not listening to what you actually have to offer, what you're saying to me. And I'm assuming we're the same when in fact we're not. So I'm not getting the deeper connection and understanding of really knowing you for you. So those questions are not about, why do you disagree with me? How come you haven't seen a therapist yet? How come you don't get the truth that I get? No. We're going to ask wondering questions that only that other person can answer about themselves and their own experiences, about which they are the experts and we know nothing. These are hard spiritual practices. That's why we have to help each other. They're really hard. 5 says, resist the urge to debate, analyze, criticize, censor, dismiss, minimize, silence, moralize, project, perform, etc. All the things we do to dodge our own discomfort and make it about the other person. Oh, it's hard. Embrace discomfort. Who wants to do that? Embrace discomfort as an invitation to focus inward on personal transformation. If needed, I will seek out support to process my feelings in a private setting so I don't hurt people with them. A lot of listening underpinning all of these principles. We're listening deeply to ourselves and to one another. Staying present and embodied with each other. And in essence, I say there's a 7th practice that goes with this. Gratefully, humbly accepting the gift inside the challenge. The golden opportunity to transform ourselves into members of beloved community that will more closely align our liberating intentions. Our principles have strong liberating intentions with our impact in our real relationships and our wider communities. The accountability is that key that we've been looking for. When we're not accountable for our relationships, people get hurt. People get excluded. marginalized, and oppressed. Right here in this building, in this room, at our events, the times that we are meant to be sharing with one another can actually be hurtful and harmful. And there are a lot more stories than you realize about this. You've talked about some of that work with truth and reconciliation, right? The truth about what's happened and what's been done, the harm. It's heartbreaking. None of us want to participate in that. We want reconciliation. We want accountability for being in loving relationship. What an opportunity to be with people who are willing to extend grace and forgiveness and call us back into love and invite us to try again. We need the 8th principle to hold each other accountable for the quality and the integrity of our covenantal relationships that we create together. Again, if we don't do this work, who are we? Why are we here? And who will we become? Predictions range from irrelevant to extinct. So now's the chance, now's our time. Good news, it's not too late. We want to create relationships that generate collective liberation. Sometimes our resolve, but I know that we can do this. I will call your attention to Exhibit A, the global COVID pandemic. It makes the case for the importance of accountably participating in collective liberation, does it not? 18 months ago, on the turn of a dime, we changed the way we do church. We went digital, we learned to Zoom, we coffee chat in breakout rooms, we socially distance, we wear masks, we get vaccinated. We're still doing most of everything we were doing before as a congregation. Yes, and we're accountable for helping each other through this strangest of crises. Ample evidence we are capable of making big change to the process of being together, to be accountable for keeping each other safe, while still promoting and sustaining connection and belonging. It's clear that every single one of us is vulnerable to this virus. Everyone has to participate in taking care of each other and protecting one another from harm. Being accountable to protect one another from harm. We have to do it together. This is a covenant, the mask wearing, the vaccinations, the distancing. It's a covenant for collective liberation from this virus that's making our lives so miserable. As Emma Lazarus, the poet and activist, said, we are not free until we are all free. We can't cure COVID. We can't rid the world of it entirely. But we can prioritize healthy relationships and mutual care. We can choose to do what's right for ourselves and the common good. We're doing it right now. It's amazing, it's impressive, it's awesome. Thank you for participating in being accountable for our health and safety. The 8th principle is another part of what is right for Unitarian Universalism and for Calgary Unitarians right now. Just like the viral pandemic, we can't eliminate racism and oppression. but we can be accountable to one another for creating relationships of mutual care and respect and love. As Reverend Dr. William Barber says, someone is hurting our family, and it's gone on way too long, and we won't be silent anymore. We're called to participate in creating a brand new, accountable collective liberation process that builds beloved community. How will we answer? Let's say yes together and get to work. May it be so. Speaking of the things that we care deeply about, now's the time in our worship together when we light candles for joys and concerns, when we acknowledge all of the things that are both wonderful and awful about our lives, knowing that we're able to offer support and care and connection with one another. It means something to share deeply with one another, to know that we are seen and heard in all the aspects of our lives. We belong here together in this loving community of care. So I light a candle for all of our joys and celebrations. I see that our chalice has stopped being lit at the moment. I think it's out of oil. All right, put this one in here. Whoops. Oh, making a mess again as usual. Here we go. Our chalices are like hope. Sometimes it's hard to get it lit. You have to help each other when it goes out. I don't think that one's going to go again. So we light candles for all that is to celebrate and share the joys with one another. We can be happy for each other's joys. And we light candles for our concerns and sorrows, all of the difficulties in life, all of the pain and suffering that goes with being human. We want to be there for each other in those times. And we acknowledge that we do, in fact, very much care about the joys and concerns of all of humanity. All people have worth and dignity and are important to us as our siblings. Beloved community, we send you our prayers. May all beings everywhere know peace. Please join me in singing Dona Nobis Pacem.
This is a centuries-old melody. Dona Nobis Pacem, give us peace. If this is one that you know well, feel free to sing it as a round with me. Let me start, and as I go to the second part, you start with the first part. Or, if you want to sing along with me, feel free.
Peace.
take some time now to reflect on your relationship with Calgary Unitarians. What is it that calls you here, that calls you onward, that calls you inward, that leads you homeward? What is it that gives you the power to make that change, to ask that question, to take that journey? What is it that says you have done well, that asks you to learn more, that brings you to stillness, that holds you up in hard times? It is the relationship, the beating heart of our faith. It begins when we share this hour, our truths, this air, our hearts. And now we will share some more beautiful music for a time of reflection.
We have been concentrating this morning on the offering of emotional support. Now it's time to take a moment to think about financial support. But thinking about it isn't quite enough. We need to take action. This community exists by its mission as a fire exists by burning. A fire cannot burn without fuel. Your support is what fuels this community and its mission. And without your support, the flame of justice, community, and love cannot burn brightly to warm ourselves and be a beacon in a world threatened by division and fear. Please be as generous as you are able. Thank you.
I leave you with the inspirational words of Samuel Trumbore. Go forth in simplicity. Find the path that leads to compassion and wisdom, that leads to happiness, peace, and ease. Welcome the stranger. Open your heart to a world in need of healing. Be courageous before the forces of hate. Hold and embody a vision of the common good that serves the needs of all people. Blessed be. I love you, and amen. Please remember to join us today at 2 o'clock back on Zoom. The link's in your order of service from Friday. And please join me in singing a rousing round of the fire of commitment.
From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. And the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul
Friends, thank you for joining us this morning for our worship service. For those who are joining on Zoom, please know that the link to our coffee chat time has just appeared in the chat area of your Zoom screen. And for those of us who are here live and in person, we'll see you in the Wickenden Hall garden. We'll just pass on through there and around the way. Be well, friends, and we hope to see lots of you online at 2 o'clock.